Today on CityCast DC, we are talking about DC litigation against a rideshare company. We're going to talk about the end with a whimper of the Charles Allen recall campaign. And we're going to talk about some news out of the Eden Center in Northern Virginia. I'm here with Katie Wells from Georgetown University, author of a big book about Uber and the decline of the city, and with my CityCast colleague, Priyanka Tilve. Today is Friday, August 16th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hi, Katie. Welcome.
Hey, Mike. Nice to see you.
Hey, Priyanka.
Hi.
All right. So, Katie, it's no secret what you think of rideshare, and it's not positive. You've written sharply about Uber, but the firm that has been sued by DC's Attorney General is one that a lot of people might not have heard of, which is called Empower. And you on social media have been saying that's a heck of a lot worse than Uber. Maybe even Uber funded it as a prank in order to make themselves look good. What's wrong with Empower, and why is DC taking them to court?
Yeah, Mike, I'm a little worried that I fell for the bait. I did not have it on my 2024 bingo card that I would be defending Uber. And yet, it seems like we are in a race to the bottom. So Empower is a ride-hail service. It's about 4 years old. It's in, I think, 3 markets in the U.S., North Carolina, New York City, and D.C. What's new about it, right, is it's got a marketing campaign that really taps into growing frustration by 2 groups. One, riders that are really frustrated with Uber's surge pricing, and 2, Uber's drivers who are really frustrated with sort of the surveillance pay and, the black box-ness of all of its pricing. And, there's also increasing evidence, as work like mine, right, that drivers are getting screwed.
All right. So far, so good, right? What's wrong with not liking surge pricing and the black box?
Well, this is the thing. Absolutely nothing. Empower is tapping into a real problem, right, which is people are frustrated. That being said, the solution it offers is not a good one. And it's a really risky one, right? Their pay structure is ostensibly different than Uber's. They say, okay, drivers get 100% of the fare, which may be true, but drivers also have to pay for a subscription to the platform each month to offset, their rates. But the devil is in the detail, okay? Because this thing called Empower, right, which has been breaking the rules for the last 4 years in DC and is now finally rightfully getting sued, doesn't provide drivers with even like the bare minimum of what Uber provides in terms of commercial insurance and a tax form for workers. It doesn't provide the city with data or any kind of tax that it should be paying.
Wait, so specifically, what rules did it allegedly break, and what are the penalties for that?
So it hasn't registered with the city as a for-hire vehicle service because it says it's not. And the thing is, it's a little ironic, Mike, because this is exactly how Uber won DC a decade ago. And so there's something very flashbacky about it for me. It's a little anachronistic, this had Empower maybe emerged a decade earlier, we all would have clapped our hands and said, yay. But it's not 2012. It's not the tech bro moment. We've had the Me Too. We're not so supportive of this, sort of Silicon Valley move in and break everything.
Well, I mean, and the tax part is, that's one thing. And I get that that's where the city is kind of coming after Empower. But something that I feel like I've been seeing online a lot is something about safety, like passenger safety. What's the story there with Empower?
So there is no requirement on the Empower app for drivers to have commercial insurance. So if I were to drive as a taxi driver in DC, I'm required to have my car inspected. I'm required to carry this special policy. Uber offers that policy to its drivers. It provides it. Now, is it a good policy? No. And Uber breaks it down into 3 different periods. So it carries different insurance provisions. So if you're, Priyanka, in a Uber and you get into an accident, right, the driver will have different protections in that period than it would if it was on its way to go pick you up. Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay. But it's all laid out. At least there's rules that are laid out, whereas Empower doesn't have any rules laid out for this.
It doesn't require drivers. It has no requirement that drivers carry this thing. So if, Priyanka, you, God forbid, are in an Empower and get into an accident, the driver, let's say Mike, Didn't actually get
I'm
around
a very good driver.
Wait, Mike, you forgot to get your commercial insurance plan. And
I
so your
did. I did.
private insurance plan, let's hope you have one, says, Mike, I'm not covering you for any accident if you're doing business. So,
Wow, Mike, I can't believe you put me in this position.
so it can be really dangerous for drivers. It can be dangerous for riders and especially for the public, right? Think about the number of accidents, speeding tickets, things like that can be incurred by these drivers that aren't identifying as commercial enterprises.
Let me ask you like the kind of libertarian-y question that they would ask, which is, look, these are adults. They sign up, they know what they're signing up for. If they choose to not get commercial insurance, they're the ones doing something, isn't it up to them? Why is this a thing that the attorney general and the court
Yeah.
system need to litigate?
Well, because, Mike, we choose to live in this thing called a society in which we think that common rules make a good life. Like my dad was a dentist in Ohio for 42 years. I am really thankful that the state of Ohio has these things called dental licenses that requires anyone who's practicing dentistry to have standards, have education, have some kind of baseline decency so that when they practice dental care, we know they're doing something good. Similarly, we have it for medicine. We have it for veterinarians. We have it for bus drivers.
But we also have it for like hairdressers and stuff. And it makes me appalled that the person who like cuts my hair, which is not very complicated to cut, has to go pay to get a license to do a job that's not paid that well.
Maybe. Well, generally, societies that have large amounts of traffic have agreed that chauffeur licensing is a good deal. It comes out of the 1930s after the Great Depression, where anyone who had any access to a car flooded the roads. And so roads were totally congested. And cities were like, oh my God, we can't, like, no one's going to get anywhere. We have to limit how many cars can be on the road. And so, yeah, on one hand, Mike, maybe there's a great argument for everyone being their own chauffeur and, having cities not regulate it. But the reality is we live in this thing called a city, which is a ton of strangers on a lot of shared land with a lot of contested uses and pressures. And so as a society and a city, we've decided that chauffeur licensing and regulation makes sense.
I guess it's also that, like, at this point, since we have had, obviously, cabs around for decades, Uber around for more than 10 years, there's like a probably irrational level of trust that comes with using apps like this where people aren't thinking to do their due diligence. So it's like, if I hear Empower, which I had heard, frankly, the only reason I haven't used Empower is because I've been lazy about downloading a new app. So like I heard about Empower a few years ago and I was like, oh, apparently there's a cheaper Uber out there. And I've heard criticism of Uber before. So maybe like it's better to support this smaller company. It's cheaper, better all around. They say they're good to their drivers. Like I should give it a go. And honestly, it wouldn't have occurred to me if I had not been lazy and had downloaded the app to try and do due diligence about whether the drivers had had background checks or had licenses and were going to be safe stewards for my ride,
Do you have a sense of how many people in the district have used the app or are using it? Because, I don't get out that much, I guess, but
Oh, poor Mike.
I'm sorry. But I didn't know about it. I've got Uber and Lyft on my phone, but not them.
We don't know. I mean, that's a great question. So the city doesn't have a great sense because Empower is not registered. It's not submitting any data. The city collects all kind of information about Uber and Lyft since 2018, but we don't know. Empower has put out, 3 days ago, some dubious information that it provides something like 70,000 rides a week. I find that very, very hard to believe. But, if we think about this as 2012 and the year of Travis Kalanick coming to D.C. and telling the council that every Uber driver makes $90,000 a year, like Empower's claims make more sense, right? And that bombastic kind of like, if I just say it to be true, it will be true.
Yeah. Okay, well, like as someone who occasionally needs to use a rideshare, what should I use then? If I shouldn't use Uber and I shouldn't use Empower, where should I go?
Look, I don't want to tell you not to use Uber, okay, or Lyft. I will
Okay.
tell
I think you just told us not to use Uber. You said no.
Okay, I will say that. All right, look, I was saying that if there's a hierarchy, right? You've got public
Right.
transit. There's also an app called Curb that uses licensed, registered, fingerprinted background check drivers. But look, the book that I wrote about Uber and the threat it poses to cities was an argument not for people to not use Uber as much as it is to question why is it that Uber makes so much sense for all of our lives. So Priyanka, yes, I want you as a female especially to be very careful about getting an Uber by yourself. Mike, I don't know, maybe you'll do okay. But I think there's enough question about sexual assault, in these vehicles. But sometimes for some workers, Uber makes sense. And sometimes for a lot of passengers, Uber helps you make ends meet, to get to where you need to go. And what I would want people to take away from the drama around Empower is really a question about why are we letting these Silicon Valley companies or McLean startups, right, really solve this transit question that should be, in my opinion, city decided and funded and secured.
Are we a few legislative tweaks away from having the big rideshare apps be something that you would feel more okay about? Or is it in your mind entirely like once you've handed over to Silicon Valley, it's probably not going to end well?
I mean, Silicon Valley has mounted a multi-pronged attack against regulation and the idea of rulemaking as a common good. I don't find that a compelling way to organize life. I don't think that's great for us as 3 people living in the city. I'm deeply worried about their view of urban life and who's in charge. And I think with MAGA, and we can think about sort of the election coming up, Uber on one hand is like a bipartisan ticket. But on the other hand, like if you look at its politics and what it's purporting to do to municipal power, it is so scary. And so I think it is not just a few tweaks away. That being said, like I'm a reasonable person. Like sometimes I have a babysitter that needs to take, that wants to take Uber home one night. And like I understand the bus, we've cut the E4 line where I live. There's only the E6 that,
Yeah, options can be scarce. And then we go with what we got.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the DC community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999.
The Library of Congress is bringing back its hit Costume Ball, and the free ticket lottery is open now. Grab your friends and come dressed in your favorite film-inspired attire on September 12th for the Library of Congress Film Costume Ball. The evening will feature a costume contest, live DJ playing iconic film scores, and themed food and cocktails. Guests can also explore treasures from the library's world-renowned collections of film, recorded sound, and performing arts, featuring legendary films such as The Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, and Cinderella. This event will sell out, so register now for the free ticket lottery at loc.gov/live. Who will you come dressed as? Elle Woods, Beetlejuice, James Bond? Start dreaming up your costume and enter the ticket lottery today at loc.gov/live. All right, so if it had been a few months ago, instead of talking about Empower, we might have been talking with great alarm about the crime rate in DC. It was a big news story. It really drove a lot of political agita and action. I think there was a lot of people who felt like they were personally scared and that their city government was not particularly respecting that fear. And there was a pretty high-profile recall campaign mounted against DC Councilman Charles Allen, who represents, an area, Ward 6, which is Capitol Hill mostly, and was sort of associated with a lot of the police reforms after 2020. It got a lot of attention. There was a lot of people who had fairly high-profile jobs in national politics who got involved. And last week, it ended kind of with a whimper. They didn't get nearly enough signatures to put the recall on the ballot. Charles Allen will finish out his term unmolested. It was kind of an interesting, process, the way this went down, including the kind of whimpery end that crime in DC has come back down following that, belatedly following the trend in other American cities. What do you all make of it?
I mean, it does very much feel like when this recall election was in the news, when I was seeing lots of like yard signs in support of recalling Allen, it was in direct correlation with the time when we were all just, very stressed out about the crime in DC. I feel like I was having lots of conversations with people in the spring, like just hanging out with friends about carjackings. And a lot of my friends who have cars have had their cars broken into, had stuff stolen, have to have those like security locks on their steering wheels. And then as that conversation died down, it definitely feels like the conversation about recalling Allen died down as well. So I think the parallel that you are identifying here is just so real.
We had the recall proponents on the pod, and I remember being struck with they're saying, well, we just want to send a message. And I said, well, if you recall Charles Allen and he runs in the race to replace himself, would you vote for him? And they said, well, maybe.
It was so funny. Yeah.
But, look, I covered DC politics, my first job in journalism in the 90s. Crime was much, much, much higher than it is today. There was a lot more concern, people who lived here, for their physical safety, not just in DC, but in national politics. Concern about crime has a warping effect on politics and a delegitimizing effect particularly on a lot of progressive efforts. And I think one of the reasons why, for people on the left, it's important to keep crime down is that when it is up, it's very hard to talk about any other priorities, whether that's like daycare or the environment or pretty much anything, reforming Uber. And, I think we just had a weird nostalgia lesson about it in real time in the last couple of years, where this issue really kind of not inappropriately skyrocketed to the forefront of people's minds. But what was interesting was that the other stuff that got pushed out of the forefront of people's minds while this was happening.
Yeah, and that was probably purposeful. I mean, we can think of Brianna Nadeau and Charles Allen as people that have been the forefront of conversations, of gig worker rights, but also thinking about transportation, road pricing. I mean, I think it's not a coincidence that these recall campaigns, right, can attack some of these questions about the way we organize city life, and their views are not popular.
I think that in DC, probably in a lot of American big cities, people who came through the experience of the crack years and of these years of like terrible municipal budgets and cuts and so on, it was a politically searing experience for them. And as we have generationally moved along, and there's a lot of people in elected office, a lot of reporters who cover city, a lot of activists who work on issues in the city who don't have the sort of like searing memory of that. It also became easy to say like, that's just crime can be an issue that's overhyped by people with like noxious racist agendas or whatever. And there's a tendency to dismiss that in ways that I think were ultimately like really bad and probably helped push aside some of their ostensibly unrelated progressive priorities.
Something I think that's interesting is that Charles Allen, obviously the recall campaign against him was centered around crime. And the fact that crime came down doesn't feel like it's entirely related to him or his policies. I think he got kind of lucky here.
No, of course. That's the thing about, crime. It's like, it's like a weird thermostat. Like you can twist it a little bit, but you don't quite know what precisely caused it to go up or down. And people who claim certainty about that are often pretty dumb.
Right. Well, I mean, you interviewed Deputy Mayor Appiah, who is the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety.
And is not dumb.
And yeah. We don't think she's dumb. She did say that she thought that DC had maybe swung too far with reforms and I think the way she framed it was in trying to lead the nation in reform, we might have gotten out of touch with what was needed locally. It was I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she said, which I interpret it as her saying that a lot of the reforms that were passed in the wake of the George Floyd protests, quote unquote, went too far. And undoing some of that is what brought crime down. I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with that perspective, but if that is the truth of what happened, then the reforms that Charles Allen was leading are the things that didn't contribute to crime coming down.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So, it's interesting.
Summer's not over yet. Metropolitan Washington Restaurant Week brings the eats from August 12th through the 18th at hundreds of locations across the DMV, offering amazing 3-course menus for lunch and dinner and brunch. It's a great time to dine out at a favorite eatery or indulge your culinary curiosity and try something new. There's an awesome variety of cuisines to explore and menu options to fit all palates. Many locations are also offering cocktail and wine pairings to further elevate your dining experience. And as a special treat for the summer promotion, you can feed your adventurous side with delicious American lamb dishes at select locations. Just look for the patriotic lamb on listings at rwdmv.com, where you can find the full list of participating restaurants, view menus, and book your reservations. Metropolitan Washington Restaurant Week is presented by RAMW and Events DC.
So I don't know about you guys. I'm a big fan of the Eden Center in Northern Virginia, which is for the uninitiated. It's like an old strip mall that is now a center of Vietnamese shopping, commerce, eating culture. And we talked about it on the pod before, but it's the sort of ownership of like the kind of boring commercial development stuff has been in flux lately. A lot of people worried, is it going to sort of lose its essential character? What's going on there this week, Priyanka?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very rare that you hear a community protest the development of a space for cultural reasons and then win. But it seems like that's what's happened here. Basically, like they were considering developing the area, trying to in the developers' words, like upscale it, make it a place that people are more happy to live and work. But the Vietnamese community in the area, especially this group called the Viet Place Collective, was concerned that it was going to contribute to displacement and, mess with the culture of the area. This is the biggest Vietnamese commercial center on the East Coast. So there's obviously a lot of love for that, and there was a lot of fear. This week, the development company came out and said that they aren't going to mess with the nature of the historic cultural hub. The center's landlord confirmed the company's commitment to Eden Center's preservation in an interview with ARL Now, which is like an Arlington news outlet. And they said, "We don't have any redevelopment plans at all. In fact, our plans are to be there forever."
Can I just like the heritage piece of it? I find,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, for people who haven't been there, it's not like this is some sort of traditional Vietnamese architecture or something. This is like an Eisenhower era American shopping center surrounded by a parking lot. What would have been the problem with redeveloping it in ways that enable it to be a little less car dominated and maybe have some residents in there too, and kind of nicer buildings?
I think people were worried about it going in the way that DC's Chinatown went, which was that as it got developed, the people of the community who lived there got priced out. And then all of a sudden, the little Vietnamese stores you had, the little Vietnamese restaurants you had, the things that were like authentic and affordable were no longer available there. And, the entire community changes, the feel of the place changes, especially because this happened before. The Vietnamese community in the DMV used to be in like Clarendon, and it was called Little Saigon. And then in the 80s, there was metro construction there that displaced everyone, and that's how they ended up in what is now Eden Center. So I think there's like a real feeling of history repeating itself and trying to avoid that.
Do you have favorite places there?
So I actually personally have not had a chance to visit Eden Center all that much, but our newsletter editor, Kayla, who writes our newsletter, Hey DC, has visited a ton. And so she gave me a bunch of recommendations to mention. First of all, she had like some tips. She said, make sure to not just go to the restaurants that are in the main parking lot, like wander through the back of the malls. She said that's where a lot of the really good stuff is. And check out some of the Vietnamese bakeries there, because she said there's a lot of like little, unique goods that you're not going to find at most of your bakeries in the area in DC. Her absolute favorite restaurant is Trong Tien. She said it's cheap, has a really great vibe. And then if you're a fan of boba, definitely go to TDM. I've heard that from Kayla, but also from a lot of other people. I'm a big boba girl. So that would be my first stop.
Katie, is that a place you frequent?
I have been there and loved it and so appreciate the strip mallness, I will say.
Right?
I think it's pretty awesome history. I'm part of DC.
How much is the Uber ride from your house to there?
I don't know, Mike. Maybe you'll have to let me know. But it will not be in an Empower. I promise you that.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're looking for a reason to go soon, they're doing their Mid-Autumn Festival on Tuesday, September 17th. So definitely check that out. And actually, we have just launched a new members perk for members of CityCast DC, where we email out a events guide every Monday with a full week's worth of events. Again, it only goes to our members, and it's a great way to plan out your week, which if you lived in DC for more than 3 days, you know that you need to plan ahead to be able to go to things because things sell out. And so we're trying to help you with that. So if you want to be a member, sign up at membership.citycast.fm. It's only $8 a month, and you'll also get ad-free listening and first dibs on live events. So yeah, check that out.
All right. Priyanka, awesome to see you.
Yeah, thanks.
Katie, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our senior executive producer is Priyanka Tilve. Our senior producer is Julia Karen. Our assistant producer is Ash Durbin. And producer Selena Say Reynolds worked with us this week, too. Kayla Cote-Stemmerman writes our fabulous newsletter, Hey DC, and our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not replace your recall/anti-recall yard sign with a sign touting how awesome we are. We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.